Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Clint's SharePoint Netcast number 146. Tonight's Netcast was recorded live on President's Day, Monday, February 18th, 2013. I, of course, am the president of this Netcast, Todd Clint. And tonight's Netcast was sponsored and supported and just all around made possible by the folks at Rackspace.com. They do all kinds of supporting, or all kinds of hosting, SharePoint hosting, Exchange hosting, Linux, whatever that is, all that kind of stuff. You can go to Rackspace.com to find out about their other offerings, and you can go to Rackspace.com/SharePoint to find out about their really cool offerings, their SharePoint offerings. Okay, so we always start out this train wreck with the production notes, and tonight is no exception. Those of you who were in the chat room last week know that the production notes will be long and steamy, and it looks like this week was trying to do a repeat of the same thing, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on. But last week I didn't get started till 9 o'clock. Tonight I'm only 9 minutes late. Last week I was a half an hour late getting started. So I thought about doing this. I've had a couple of people ask how the sausage is made, essentially, with this Netcast. And so I'm thinking about actually doing a Netcast on how I do my Netcast, just to show all the moving parts so that people can tell me all the things that I'm doing wrong, and I can do them better. But I have two webcams that I use when I do this. I have this one that is live, so the live folks can see me point at them, and then this one that does the recording. This one is a Microsoft Live Cam Studio, and this one is a Logitech C920. So the reason I do that is because Windows can't split video sources natively, and so I need to record the video and stream the video, so I need two cameras. Last week, for whatever reason, after a month of doing this, whenever I would fire up the Ustream producer and try to attach it to that camera right there, my Microsoft Live Cam, it would give me an error message that said my USB bus was full. Now, my USB bus on that box, it's a dedicated box, doesn't do a whole lot else, had exactly, at that time, 3 USB devices on it. Keyboard and mouse, the audio thing where my mixer hooks in, and the webcam, and that was it. And Ustream was telling me that my USB bus was maxed out. And so never really did get past that. Ended up splitting some things out. I think I recorded on this one, streamed on another one. And never really figured out what was going on. Tried everything out this afternoon, hooked the live cam up, all that stuff. Everything was working fine. I was able to go online for a couple minutes this afternoon. And then, of course, at 8:15, I tried to go on live to chat with the chat room. USB bus error. So not entirely sure why it's not doing it right now. For those of you in the chat room, I'll probably go off at any moment, and I'll just be gone and never come back. If that does happen, I will plow through for the sake of the recording, so I'm not going to fight it and try to get back online. But so that's what's going on. So I'm going to play with this a little bit. I don't really think the USB bus is overdrawn. I mean, there's only 3 things hooked up to it. I understand video takes a lot, but I've been doing the 2 video cam thing on 1 USB bus for 4 years now, so it's not asking too much. So I'm going to dig into that a little more. I might talk to the folks at Ustream, because last week I was having that same problem on 2 different machines. So anyway, so that's why things were rough last week. Still apparently having some problems. I loaded some LifeCam drivers on this box today. Thought that was going to fix it. Maybe not. So that was the first production screw-up. The second one was because 144 came out late because I was gone. I published 145 a little later so that they weren't right on top of each other. So the blog post for 145 didn't come out until Friday, and then the RSS feeds were a little later, about 2 hours ago, actually. And so that's what's going on with those. So I'll try to get this one out a little sooner, just so that we don't have to wait so long. All right, so that is the production notes, and let's go on to the topics. So lots of topics this week. I'm going to have to do the whole Micro Machine Man to get it all in. I got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. The first one is, and I sort of alluded to this last week, I'm going to New Orleans. They finally announced all the stuff, the people who are talking at TechEd North America in New Orleans in June, and this guy is going. I don't think they have announced everybody and everything, but Shane and I are doing a pre-con, so we will be there for sure that Sunday. I forget the dates, June, whatever, something, your mom. It's coming up in my browser here. So it looks like June 3rd, I will be in New Orleans doing a SharePoint 2013 admin pre-con, and then various other things that have not been announced yet during the week. So if you're going to TechEd, come look me up. If you're not going to TechEd, there's still time to fix that and go to TechEd. You got 4 months to sign up. There'll be all kinds of great SharePoint stuff there. Rackspace, I'm sure, is going to have a booth there, and we'll be doing some stuff. So, like I said, there'll be other things coming out, announced, but for now, we got that. I know I'm going to be there. I know I'm going to be doing the pre-con. On the heels of that, they've also announced the people who are going to be at TechEd Europe, which is in Madrid. I will be going to that as well. So if you are a European viewer of this and you can't quite get over to New Orleans, I don't blame you. Then you'll be able to see me in Madrid. So in the chat room, they're asking if TechEd and MMS will be combined starting next year. I don't know about that. I haven't heard anything. Also in the chat room, Jack is asking, what about the SharePoint conference for 2013? I haven't heard a word about the SharePoint conference in 2013. I have no idea. Not being coy, honestly, just don't know. Joanne is asking, do you think TechEd is as good or better than SPTechCon as far as SharePoint content goes? That is a tough one, Joanne. Obviously, SPTechCon is all SharePoint. From the opening bell till the last afternoon, nothing but SharePoint. So that's great if you're a SharePoint person, because then it's all good stuff. It can end up being bad because you end up having things stacked against each other that you want to go to because there's no other things there, so it's all stuff you want to go to. It's a little smaller conference, so it's a little more intimate, 1,000 people or so at that one. I've always had a great time at SPTechCon. I'm one of the 4 people, I think, that's spoken at all of the SPTechCons that they've had so far. So SPTechCon is great. TechEd is a little different. So TechEd obviously is put on by Microsoft, so it's kind of, the mothership. It's kind of the big dog. But depending on which groups have money and what groups are releasing products that year, TechEd may have no SharePoint sessions or may have a bunch of SharePoint sessions. It's really tough to tell, so you don't know. So the answer to your question, whether SPTechCon or TechEd is better for SharePoint folks, I honestly don't know. And until the schedule comes out for TechEd, I think we just won't know. Now, TechEd is also going to have other things like hands-on labs. It's going to have a bigger vendor hall, things like that. So it's tough. I wish I could answer better for you, but I can't. But so for TechEd Madrid, that's going to be awesome. I don't know what all's going on there. That is like the 3rd week of June, something like that. They've already announced a few of the pre-cons that are going on over there. So if you're going to be over in Madrid in June, swing by. And as always with any of these conferences, if you're there, you got to come find me. You got to come say hi. I'm a pretty friendly guy. All the folks in the chat room will attest. I've met half of them in person. I'm just a friendly guy. So come up, say hey if you find me. And Joanne, so I think the answer to your question of whether you should go to SPTechCon or TechEd, I think you should go to TechEd Madrid. I think it's really the best solution for you. But anyway, it's finally official. I'm going. So Mirza's asking, does TechEd have netcasts? TechEd, depending on the year, this will be like the 7th or 8th one that I spoke at, they have different things like that. So the Channel 9 folks from Microsoft have videos there. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. I will do everything in my power to do this netcast from there that Monday. So we'll try to make that work. The Madrid thing's going to be a little tougher because this time is, like 1 in the morning, midnight Madrid time, so I don't know how we'll do it, but I'm going to try. But they've got all kinds of crazy things at TechEd. Was it last year they had the robot boxers, the Connect-powered ones, so pretty cool. Okay, enough on that. So now just a whole bunch of stuff to talk about this week. Now, I used to do the whole PowerShell tip of the week thing, and I quit doing that because I just forgot about it, honestly, just spaced it off. But I found another one last week, a PowerShell commandlet that I've just fallen in love with, and that is invoke web request. So invoke web request is a new commandlet in PowerShell v3. So it's going to be on all your SharePoint 2013 boxes. Don't install it on your SharePoint 2010 boxes. Bad things happen. But for SharePoint 2013 or your Windows 7 workstations, Windows 8 workstations, whatever, invoke web request is a single commandlet that will allow you to download a file from the internet locally. So the way I stumbled across it is from my old days using Unix and all that kind of stuff. There's a command called wget, and you could say wget and give it a URL, and it would get that file. That's awesome. There's just a lot of times when you need that, and invoke web request does that in PowerShell 3. So you say invoke web request, here's the URL, here's the local file, and then go at it. Now, this is not to say that this is the only way to download files with PowerShell. Callahan in the chat room there, shout out to Callahan. She's mentioning that you could do bits transfers. That's something that's been around for a while, and you could also do some other ways. But the thing that invoke web request has going for it is it's a single line. It's just one command, and so you can just if you've got something. And the way this came about is somebody sent me a direct link to a video file that I wanted to download, and I couldn't back it off and get to the directory and browse or anything. And so what I needed was I just wanted to give something a URL and get the file, and invoke web request was the thing for that. So it works really well. Works with SharePoint. You can put in usernames, passwords, and all that kind of stuff, though I haven't done it with SharePoint much. But invoke web request, great little tool to throw in your arsenal. Another PowerShell thinger this is a friend of mine, Bill Simser. And honestly, friend's kind of stretching it a little bit. But he's got a PowerShell tool that removes orphaned users from SharePoint. And so he wrote a couple of PowerShell functions, and basically it walks through, it compares every user to AD to make sure that they're in AD, and if it's not, it removes them. I've not actually run this. I can't vouch for it. For all I know, it might format your farm and let the air out of your tires and leave the light on in your bathroom after you go to bed. So Doug in the chat room is saying that he used it last week and it works great. Doug's a developer, so he's obviously not trustworthy. But if you're the type that can trust the developer, well, Doug said that it works. But that's a tool out there. I get this request a lot, more than I would think that I would, about how to remove inactive users. So Bill has got that. For those of you listening on the MP3 version or whatever, you can get it. It'll be in the show notes, but it's at weblogs.asp.net/bsimser, S-I-M-S-E-R. But Bill, good guy. I've known Bill for a lot of years. He does a lot of this development stuff, so I wanted to share that. So going back to the invoke web request thing, Mirza in the chat room is asking if you can use it to download apps from the marketplace. I don't think so, but I've never tried. I don't know. And Mark in the chat room is saying that Doug strikes him as a developer with some sense. That doesn't even make sense. A developer. Mark, you're new around here, Mark, aren't you? But anyway, that tool's come up. It is Doug approved, so you've got that. Something just beeped. I'm not sure what. Check my machine, make sure nothing's going to explode. Nothing's going to explode. Off we go. Okay, so one of the big stories last week, and I probably buried the lead on this, was there was a bunch of SharePoint patches released last week, and released in an odd, somewhat comical order. The first one on Tuesday, Microsoft released a critical on-demand patch, or a COD, or a hotfix, for SharePoint 2010 that fixes a regression that was introduced in the August 2012 CU that breaks web pages because of this nav node bug that they introduced. Basically, what it would come down to is if you installed the August cumulative update, it would break some SharePoint 2010 webs, excuse me, and it'd give you this crazy nav node error and this crazy timeout error. Didn't make any damn sense at all. They have finally gotten around to patching that, 5 months later or whatever, and they patched it in that critical on-demand patch. And if you go out to the best site on the internet for getting your SharePoint build numbers, that's toddclint.com/SP2010builds, you will see that puts you at build number 14.0 6134.5003. Now remember this, 5003. This number is going to come up. That was Tuesday. Now, on Wednesday, the day after Tuesday, Microsoft releases the February 2013 cumulative updates for SharePoint 2010. And they have all the bug fixes and all that kind of stuff in there. They are build 14.0 6134.5000 with a 0 at the end. So, to wrap this up, Tuesday's patch is a later build than Wednesday's patch, obviously. So be careful with that, because you don't want to install the February CU over top of the February hotfix, because it will unfix the hotfix. So be careful with that. Mark is asking, does the regression show up in October and December CUs? Yeah. So as soon as you install that August CU, stuff is broken until you install this February hotfix. So yes, and we got somebody in the chat room that's saying that they had that problem today. I have not seen what triggers it. It doesn't happen all the time. I mean, it doesn't break 100%, but I've had a couple customers who have had it, and there was no fix for it. So if you've installed the August 2012 CU, be on the lookout for these crazy nav node errors. Now, in the show notes and in the chat room, I linked a blog post by somebody at Microsoft. I've forgotten his name. I apologize. He has got some workarounds for that nav node bug. So even if you don't want to install that patch right now, at least read through that blog post. He's got some things in the chat room that might help you out and get your stuff going. But if you've got that hotfix, be on the lookout for these nav node errors, and it just kills the page. And if you do have that bug, and for whatever reason you haven't gotten it all fixed, the series of events is to install the February cumulative update and then install the February hotfix. Or if you just install the February hotfix, don't install the February cumulative update afterwards. Now, it's all in the right order on toddclint.com/SP2010builds, and it's all laid out in the bugs and regressions notes. I've tried to make it as clear-cut as possible. But there'll probably be some questions about that and all that. But the hotfix came out and the cumulative update came out. They came out in the opposite order. Now, the obvious reason for that, I mean, I make fun of it. It's a funny thing to make fun of. But the reason is because hotfixes are tested less thoroughly, so it doesn't take as long. And also there's just less rigmarole to getting them published. So that's why the cumulative update came out a day later. But yes, like Doug says, because I've beaten him over the head with this a lot, never install a cumulative update unless it fixes something that you have that's broken, and put it in a test environment and let it set for a month. So anyway, that was kind of the big story. Those two patches came out. As far as I know, no February 2013 cumulative updates have come out for SharePoint 2013. And I will say, as far as I know, no cumulative updates, period, have come out for SharePoint 2013. All we have is those 3 hotfixes that came out in December. Okay. So, but if you have any questions about that, hit me up on Twitter. Leave comments on my blog. Also, you can, depending on how you want to get the information about this, I've also got a Twitter account at SP2010patches. Why I didn't call it SP2010 builds, I have no idea. But at SP2010patches, And if you follow that, then every time I update, new patches come out, I will tweet that out. And so in the patch or in the chat room, they're saying that they're going to change the schedule for CUs for SharePoint 2013. It's going to be every 2 months on Patch Tuesdays. That could be. I mean, they've obviously changed the production cycle on that, but there have been several Patch Tuesdays since October when SharePoint 2013 came out, and no cumulative updates have come out yet. So, and nice of Sandy to notice my new red Rackspace cup. Rackspace hosting. Water tastes better when it comes out of a Rackspace cup. True story. So I'll keep I'll keep my eye out for those patches. So another thing that I did last week, something that I haven't been doing a lot of lately, is I actually put out a technical blog post. It was it felt very odd. But this one is one that I've had a bunch of people pestering me for, and I've kind of been nervous to put it out, but I finally broke down last week and did it. It is my SharePoint 2013 Service Account Suggestions blog post. And basically this is the 2013 version of my Service Account Suggestions blog post for SharePoint 2010. So this was one... I wanted to make sure SharePoint 2013 has a lot more nooks and crannies in it. And before I published this blog post, I wanted to make sure that I understood everything and that I'd installed everything enough times to know what the hell I was suggesting to people. And even after I published the darn thing, I had to change a couple of things. But I guess one of the things to make clear is that it is just suggestions. It is not written in stone. It didn't come down through the burning bush or anything like that. It is not gospel. It is just one guy's suggestions. So, if I've had a couple of people, email me and say, but my situation is this. Your list is wrong. Absolutely. You got me. My list is wrong. It's just suggestions. It's just the starting spot. But for SharePoint 2013, I had to make this a little more complicated because there's a bunch more moving pieces with it. So let me bring it up here so I can actually look at it. So I've got at the top of the blog post, I've got the regular accounts, kind of like the ones that I had for SharePoint 2010. Had to tweak them a little bit for a couple of small changes in SharePoint 2013, but for the most part, it's all the same. But then one of the big things that comes up in SharePoint 2013 is all the business intelligence stuff, the BI stuff. So I added all of that as well. And now that I think about it, and I also added the workflow management service. I think I'm going to move that up to the top because that's really not BI. But those are all optional things. So if you install that piece of software, here's the account that you should run it as. So a couple of things, and I didn't really add all this to the 2010 version of the blog post, and so I felt like I kind of needed to do this for the 2013 one. Excuse me. I've got these account names out there in this blog post, but they are not exactly the account names that you should use. Number one, because then, if you've got a SharePoint farm on the internet, some joker can try to use SP install and SP farm and get in. That's a horrible idea. But number two, every one of your SharePoint farms should have different service accounts. Every one of them. So you should have, maybe SP farm dev and SP farm prod and SP farm 2013 or whatever. But every one of your farms should have different service accounts because you don't want somebody from one farm using their account to jump into another farm. You don't want a process that's running in one farm jumping across and running into another farm. So be very careful about that. Every SharePoint farm should have its own set of these accounts. You just want to be very, very careful about. Now, on top of that, to piggyback on that, when you start adding suffixes and prefixes to differentiate your farm account and your install account and all that between farms, you have to be very careful that the account name does not go over 20 characters. So that's 20 characters. The reason for that is because 20 characters is the account length for pre-Windows 2000 account names, the old domain / username business. And there are a couple of places inside of SharePoint that don't use the new long, the UPN ones, that use the short pre-Windows 2000 names. So what ends up happening is you put a character, an account name in that's longer than 20 characters, and it looks right, but internally SharePoint's storing it as only 20 characters. So then you get this account missing issue. Hilarity ensues. Everybody has a great time. User profile sync service. I'm looking at you. That's one of the ones I've gotten nailed with that. The content crawl is another one. So you want to make sure that your account names are always shorter than 20 characters once you start putting all those things on. The other thing that I put in this version of the blog post that I didn't in the 2010 one is this is a list of all the service accounts, but then I've also got that that blog post on how to create an administrative account and quit using service accounts to log in, quit logging in as SP Farm and SP Install, and I put a link to that in there too, so that that's another account that you should have. So already got some feedback on that. A few folks asked questions like why I took out SP Search and all that kind of stuff. If you've got questions, throw them out there, put them in the comment section of the blog, and I'll get back to you. Now, something that I've added to my blog is for the comment section, I added a place for you to put your Twitter handle, because I realized SharePoint's blogging engine's not great. I know this comes as a big shock to a lot of people. So for people who leave comments on my blog, since they can't log in or anything yet, there's no way for them to find out if I replied back. So that Twitter thing, if you leave your Twitter handle in your comment, then when I reply to your comment, I'll tweet you and let you know so you can go back and check for it. So that was something new that I added here in the last week or two, I forget. Okay, so those are the big ones. So now there's just a... Mirza's asking in the chat room if there's a limitation on the minimum characters needed for AD accounts. No, I think probably just one. You can't have any, clicks or bangs or any of that kind of stuff. You actually have at least one character, but other than that, I don't know. Okay, so here, so in the chat room before we went live, while I was still getting beat about the head and shoulders by my webcams, Jack asked about how you can keep some kind of running tally of how big your databases are getting and how your site collections, and kind of see it historically over time. And we talked a little bit about that. You could do some stuff with PowerShell if you wanted to, and write it out and append files and all that kind of stuff. But I swear I already had this in my notes. But SPDocKit at SPDocKit.com had a new release last week, 3.12, and I bring that up because SPDocKit is a great documentation tool for your SharePoint farm. It's one that I use with a bunch of my customers. I use it myself on my my blog, and this is one of the things that they do. You can run SPDocKit, and you can run it, once a month, and it will give you that whole comparison thing. And it's fairly inexpensive. I don't remember exactly what the prices are, so I'm not going to say them in here and then commit those guys to selling it for less than they're used to. But it's an amazing tool. You can it formats itself really well, and it can save out to Word or PDF file. And it just formats things great. But you can also give it a template. So like for us at Rackspace, we use it and for customers, and then we've got a Rackspace template so that it creates all that stuff, but it's got all of our branding and all those kind of things. You can also pick which things go in it. Another great thing that it does is if you give it your SkyDrive account, it will save all of your settings and all of your reports into SkyDrive for you, so you don't lose those. It creates an SP documentation kit folder in SkyDrive and just syncs all that stuff manually if you tell it to. So that's really nice. I'm a big fan of the tool. One of the things that they have done is they have added a best practices analyzer. So if you're doing things like running everything as your farm account, it's going to yell at you and all kinds of stuff like that. So so it's a pretty good tool. I think there's a demo version of it out there you can get at SPDocKit.com. Just a really great tool. Can't say enough good things about it. And the guy who's in charge of the company, who runs the company that creates it, Tony Francola, friend of mine. So they'll take care of you. But if you buy it and you have any problems and Tony doesn't take care of you, give me a shout, and I'll get Tony on the horn. We'll make it right. But definitely do yourself a favor and check out the demo. Here's another great thing that got published this week. There's a guy on the internet Some of you may have heard of him, a guy named Spence Harbar. He dabbles in this SharePoint thing. He's not too bad, average. But Spence has been releasing a bunch of blog posts lately, and I don't have all of them in here for this week, but I'll be covering them next week. But the one that I'm talking about this week is he released a blog post on how to use SSL with Central Admin for SharePoint 2013. And this is a really great idea for a number of reasons. Obviously, if you have stuff over SSL, it can't get hacked, all that kind of stuff. But implementing SSL with Central Admin has some twists to it. It's not quite as easy as it ought to be. Part of that is because your Central Admin URL is stored in the registry, things like that. So Spence's blog post walks through that, has lots of pictures. So definitely it's something to consider, running SSL over Central Admin. Now I will comment on one of his things, and I was being funny before. Spence is an incredibly smart guy. He's an MCM. He was the first Microsoft certified architect for SharePoint. Clearly the guy's smart stuff. In his blog post, he talks about how you should run Central Admin on 443, so https://server name, as opposed to SSL over some random port like it normally is. And he's probably right, but I can tell you that at least once in the history of SharePoint, doing that, running it on a standard port as opposed to a non-standard port, has broken things. And while that particular bug has been fixed, it's possible that poorly written software would assume that Central Admin was always on a non-standard port and would always have :port at the end. And so running it on 443 would break that potentially. Again, Spence said run it on 443. I can't go out in public and contradict Spence, but that's something that it bit me before. User profile service would fail if Central Admin is on a known port. So this was an interesting one. I was looking for something else this week and stumbled across this little number by accident. This is the supported high availability and disaster recovery options for SharePoint databases white paper on TechNet. So what this white paper does, and I'm going to have a blog post eventually that covers similar stuff, but this talks about every type of database in SharePoint 2010 or SharePoint 2013 and what the high availability and disaster recovery options are for that. So are you wondering if you can do log shipping of your config database? It's in there. Are you wondering if you can use SQL always-on availability groups for your user profiles databases? It's in there. In typical TechNet fashion, it's really long and it's really wordy and it's kind of tough to consume, but everything that you need is in that document for all of it. And I think it's got both versions, 2010 and 2013. So that's good documentation for that. Again, I was looking for something else, but I saw that and I'm like, that's pretty sweet. I like that. And so Doug in the chat room is saying how much of it is trustworthy. I think all of it. So I didn't read everything because it is just humongous, but I didn't see anything that I could point at and say that's not correct. So, and also since it's on TechNet, you've got the whole supportability thing. If they say that it's in there, if it's in there, it's probably supported. And finally, one of my friends in Sweden, Joran Husman, tweeted this out a couple of days ago. It is Visio stencils for SharePoint 2013. Where he was with this download 2 weeks ago when I was writing the SharePoint 20, or not writing, but making the drawings for the SharePoint 2013 class that I taught a couple weeks ago, why he couldn't have tweeted this out 3 weeks earlier, I don't know. But these are updated stencils, and they have SharePoint 2013 and Link 2013 and all that kind of stuff. So I'm no Visio expert. Anybody who's sat in one of my classes can attest to that. So in the admin class, I've got a Visio diagram that I drew of farm topologies. And Mark in the chat room, he knows the story I'm going to tell. So I've got this topology picture, and I've got a load balancer, and I've got arrows and everything. And in one of them, I've got the arrow from the load balancer to the web front end pointing the wrong direction, so traffic going from the web front end to the load balancer. And for the life of me, for like an hour, I tried to get that arrow pointing the other direction, and I couldn't do it and just gave up. So I'm no Visio expert, and that slide just made it in. I just said to heck with it and left it in. But loading these stencils is kind of clumsy, so make sure that you read through how to do that. You have to open it up and load the stencils and all that. But once you do, they're in there. They look great. I mean, they've got the little Office 2013 logos and all that. And then they're free download. So that's on Microsoft.com in the download section, and of course at the bottom of the blog post in the show notes. So thanks, or talk to Joran for that. So that is, wow, we got through a whole bunch of topics on that one. That was like 8 topics, something like that. Far more than usual. Webcam didn't poop out. Good going USB bus for sticking out. So now we're going to talk about some promotional stuff. So the first thing is, and I talked about this in the chat room last week, and then the blog post, all that kind of stuff. While we were in class in San Antonio, one of my coworkers, Stephen Wilson, made these "What Would Shane and Todd Do" T-shirts based on a conversation we had Thursday night at dinner. And so now you can see on the screen there, Lori Gowan in the chat room was the first person to buy one, and that's what the T-shirt looks like. So you can go out to Zazzle.com. There's a link in the show notes if you want to buy a "What Would Shane and Todd Do" T-shirt. I think Stephen's getting all the proceeds from that. I'm not making any money off those shirts, so don't worry about that. But I'm sure Shane and I will have something for those. We'll be wearing them at a conference or something. That's just funny stuff. WWSTD. That's what I'm always asking myself. Oh, Jack's got a suggestion for the updates. I would love to hear them. We've got a lot of creative people out there. So the other thing, so Jack's saying change it to SNTD. The STD part is what makes it funny. You got to leave that in. That's why it's funny. So the last week or so, and certainly last weekend, I spent trying to finish up the very last chapter for our SharePoint 2013 admin book, and it's close. I'm within spitting distance of the finish line, at least for writing chapters. So you can go out to Amazon, search for my name, or use the link in the show notes or in the chat room. You can reserve a copy now, and also I will be selling copies of this book, signed copies of this book, off of my website. So you can hold out if you want a signed copy where I write something terribly inflammatory and mean, but true about Shane. You can buy those, and once that all gets figured out, I'll put that on my blog and on the store site. But you can go out also and reserve it on Amazon. So in a couple of weeks, man, like 2 weeks from today, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be out in San Francisco at SPTechCon. We're doing 3 sessions there, Admin 1 and 2, and doing an install session. And so if you're going to be in San Francisco, you got to swing by. You got to say, hey, we're going to be there. Also, I'm going to try my darndest to do this thing Monday night. Last time we were in San Francisco, I recorded this at Robert Scoble's studio at our San Francisco office. Excuse me. So I'm probably going to talk to him and find out if he's going to be using the studio, if I could do it that Monday night. The problem is this time right now in 2 weeks is going to be when the lightning talks are at SPTechCon. So we're probably going to do our lightning talks and then get in a cab and fly over to the office. They're not too far apart. But plan on this going on in 2 weeks from SPTechCon. Might be a little late, but I'm going to do everything I can to make this work. And then, of course, the first week of June, we have TechEd in New Orleans, and the third week of June, we have TechEd in Madrid, Spain. And I think that's all the stuff that I've got on the books for promotional things right now. So that's it for this week. Thanks to everybody. I did a pretty good job with my time management. It was only a few minutes late. Thanks to the chat room again. So Joanne, before you do that, I'm not sure how shipping to Canada is going to be. We'll have to talk about that. So as always, you can watch this live at toddclient.com/netcast. You can watch the video live. You can watch the chat room live, all that kind of stuff. You can find me on the Zune Marketplace and the iTunes Store. You can find the audio version. If you want the video version, and Lord knows you do, my mom tells me I'm the handsomest boy she's ever seen, you can get the RSS feeds off of my blog or the Netcast page. and subscribe to the videos. I'm also on YouTube now, so if you can go to YouTube and search for my name, or go to youtube.com/ToddClintNetcast. Every one of these netcasts goes up there. You can subscribe to the channel, you can leave comments and all that kind of crazy stuff. Doing everything I can to make this easy for you guys to consume. You know, YouTube is a pretty good thing. I wasn't sure how well that was going to turn out, but I got a bunch of people that are watching it, subscribing to it, so that's pretty good stuff. But as always, you can hit me up on Twitter at Todd Clint. You can email me at todd.clint@rackspace.com, and just let me know what you think. If if I've said anything wrong, you want something you want me to cover, whatever, give me a shout and I'll cover it out. So thanks to everybody in the chat room. You're very patient. Thanks to everybody who downloaded this, and I will see you back here next week with more great SharePoint goodness. Thanks. Have a good night.